G'day guys, welcome back to the studio. I'm Dan from Drop Bear Lures. Today I'm going to talk you through the frame that I put together for using this the mesh stencil we use to put scales on the side of the lures. I'm going to show you some of the design elements that I put together to make this user friendly, and show you how I used to do the mesh stencils on my lures and why I use this method now. So the method I used to use was the same as you see in a lot of tutorials on YouTube, just the wrap and alligator clips. This is not a piece that I would usually use, and it's probably not big enough, but just for the sake of demonstration, wrap the mesh around using the alligator clips to then hold it tight on the lure. Assuming that's covering the whole lot. And then it'd just be a case of using your airbrush, spraying the stencil on. What I did like about this method when I used to use it was that you could get the pattern all the way across from one side to the other and it'd match up. What I didn't like about it was that it just takes so long. If you're doing multiple lures in the same pattern in a batch, you got to set the mesh up on every single lure with all the alligator clips, and it's very time consuming. Whereas with the method I'm using now, I can just spray that one. I can almost just put it down, pick up the next one, spray the next one, and I can go through multiple lures. By the time I get through, you know, say you're doing 10 lures, you can go back and pick up the first one that you started with, and you can easily just, there's no dramas in painting the other side. The other thing that I didn't like about the old method, like with the alligator clips, you've got to be very careful when you're putting the alligator clips on. If you want to get a nice tight wrap with that mesh, sometimes the mesh can smudge your paint job that you've already put down over the top. The alligator clip, if you're not careful, can scratch the paint on the belly. You've got to be very careful when you're taking it all off too. So there's a lot of things like that where it could just ruin your paint job. So that was one of the things that I didn't like about the old method. The other thing I found too was that a lot of the time I'd spray the mesh, like I'd wrap the whole thing up, spray the mesh across the whole, you know, the two sides and the back, and then you'd put a pattern on the side like some other stencil with, it might be, you know, the stripes or something like that, and then I'll be spraying the top and fading from the top down to the sides anyway, so you'd lose the mesh that you'd done on top. You couldn't see it anymore, so there's no point really having it there. So with this method, I'm only spraying on the side. I can put my stencil over the top of that if I'm using some other element, and then I can fade from the top, and I've not really, it doesn't matter if they're like, it doesn't match up from the top to the side because I haven't even got any mesh on the top. The other thing is too, sometimes if you do want to have mesh on the top and on the sides, you can easily do that. You spray the side, spray the top, spray the other side. These, the mesh isn't going to match up on these edges, but if you've got other elements on there, so if you've sprayed another stencil over the top, or you've got a splatter design or something like that, or a crawl design, you're not going to notice that because you've got that other element to the paint job, which yeah, draws your attention away from the fact that the mesh doesn't match up from the side to the top. So here's the frame that I use for my new method. You can see it's a pretty simple frame. It's just got this rectangular frame that's the base. Got a couple of brackets in there for strength. I've screwed it down to the table so it doesn't move. It's nice and sturdy. On the front, I've got these, I suppose these are the grips that I use at the front. I've just got a piece of timber there which is screwed to the upright of the frame, and then this front part is hinged on, as you can see there in the center. I didn't want it just held on, like the mesh stencil held on between the timber. I didn't think it'd hold very well, so I put a bit of padding in there. And then on this side here, I've also stapled in some sandpaper so that when I close that and clamp it up, it's not going anywhere. It holds it nice and tight. So that's the same on this side. On the back, all I've done is just I've nailed in these real fine nails all the way along and just bent them over so that when I put the mesh on, it's got something to, like all those little holes in the mesh, just go over that, and I can pull it tight and clamp it in at the front there. Something else to note is that I've deliberately put this part of the frame on the back of where the uprights are. I've got the clamps at the front, this part at the back, so when I put the mesh on, it's sort of pulled down like that. It's not a straight up and down like a vertical type setup. I just find that it's easier when I've got the lures in behind the mesh, that if it's on that angle, it's just much more easier to work with. So if I run quickly through now how I set the mesh up. Once I've chosen my mesh, it's just a case of leaning over the back and having the top strip hooked onto those nails. Make sure that they're hooked in all the way along so that when they pull tight, they pull tight all the way along. Open up that hinge, pull it down. The sandpaper will hold that tight, won't let it slip when I close it. Put the clamp on, and then that's nice and tight. Do the same on the other side. Pull it tight this way, so down from the top and across from the other side, so that I'll get a nice tight area to work with in the middle. With the sandpaper, that's going to close up and hold that tight on this side. The other clamp goes on, and we're good to go. So now I've got the mesh set up, ready to go. I've got my lure that I'm going to put the stencil on the side of. Just tuck it in behind. I just push that tight. I use your thumb if you need to. And then it's just a case of using the airbrush to spray the stencil on the side. If I'm not using it on the side, I can use it on the back, depending on the pattern I'm doing, or bring it down lower if I'm only going to do it on the bib or just the top half of the bib. Just pull it tight there, and then it's just a case of releasing, and it should be good to go. So there you go. That's the reasons why I've gone from the old method of wrapping the lure in the mesh with the alligator clips, and went with the design of this frame and putting the mesh in those clamps. Definitely not the only way to do things. It's the way that works for me. Always changing and always learning, and I'm always keeping an eye out to see what other people are doing as well. So if anyone else has got any ideas or hacks or things like that they're using to spray the mesh on their lures, that'd be great. I'd love to hear about it, love to see it. Yeah, send me a message, send me a video, send me pictures, whatever. Yep, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've got something out of it. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I will put some more videos together of some of the other things that I use to make things easier when I'm putting when I'm painting my lures and building them. So thanks guys, see you next time.